everybody understands how important it is to have a whole community come together and respond in the event of a disaster. And I know council members are particularly aware, and those council members in the who represent the hardest hit areas are particularly aware of the needs of their constituents whose homes were flooded, whose lives were upended, and they didn't know where to turn. And then how wonderful it was to see teams of volunteers get in there and roll up their sleeves and make a difference. Anytime we've had a disaster in Houston, we have had great volunteers step up. But I don't know that we have ever had teams of volunteers respond so quickly, in so organized a manner, and so effectively as we did after the Memorial Day floods. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we had an in with a large church organization that has an already existing volunteer network. And then we use that template to help us bring in other volunteers. And this morning, I wanted to thank the 3 largest groups that turned out to do volunteer work in response to the flood, but I also wanted to thank Director of Housing and Community Development, Neil Ratcliffe, who went way above and beyond his job responsibilities, personally put in many, many weekend and evening hours helping make sure that the volunteer activities coordinated well and that we met the needs that we had. I'm going to call out specifically 3 organizations. As I said, I have some proclamations to offer, but I'm going to give Neil a few minutes to talk about what he did, and then I'm going to come back.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words, Mayor. Good morning, members of council. It's a pleasure to address you. What we did was attempted, and I think successfully, to help the volunteer organizations that invariably come out to assist folks whose homes were flooded to have as good of information as we could provide to them that we gleaned through kind of pouring through the city's data sets from police and fire and public works and through the 311 system, et cetera, so that we could help volunteer organizations, faith-based and otherwise, find people they might not otherwise have been able to find. Particularly, we were focused on looking for the elderly, those who were disabled, and those who are lower income, who may not have the capability to do some of the cleanup and recovery work that was necessary. So we started off with about 292 311 calls that had identified flooding. We didn't know if that was inside or outside, and as Mayor Parker indicated, we started with the LDS volunteers because we had them, they were quickly organized and were able to help us go out. In one day, we had 30 members of my staff and 30 approximately LDS volunteers go out, and we visited, I think, 252 of the 292 homes that had called in flooding, ascertained where the greatest damage was, and then the volunteer groups went to work, and we found that the deeper we got into neighborhoods, the more and more work there was. It wasn't immediately apparent. And let me tell you, the Texas United Methodist Conference, who we're honoring today, and the NECHAMA Jewish Response to Disaster group were phenomenal. I have never seen organizations work so cooperatively and cohesively together. They were swapping volunteers out and working together. We were providing information to help them be more effective. And my whole deal with talking to the various nonprofit groups that we were working with was I told them, we're not here to control you, right, or tell you what to do. We want you to go out and do what you do well, which is help people. we want to be able to provide better data to help you do it more effectively and provide coordination. So, for example, we would have folks say, I've got a problem. There's a lady, elderly lady in an apartment complex who's in trouble. I called Chris Newport, and folks in the neighborhood were pretty amazed that the chief of staff of the mayor of the city of Houston is showing up to help one elderly individual who's in trouble. But it was the kind of response that we saw, and I've been amazed to see Mayor Parker's compassion. Not amazed that she is compassionate. I knew that all along. It's the degree of compassion that it was wonderful to see. I mean, this was an opportunity to see the volunteer community, faith-based community, and civil servants, public servants, really at their best. And thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this effort.
Go away. This is, in essence, my mayor's report for this morning, and don't in any way want to imply that we are completely recovered from the floods. I know there are a lot of folks who are still rebuilding. There are still a lot of issues, but the volunteer response is winding down, and I wanted to make sure that we thanked the volunteers while it was still timely, and that we took a moment to really focus on the work of volunteers. Whereas faith-based organizations serve a vital role in disaster relief and recovery by organizing and focusing volunteer efforts toward the areas of greatest need. And whereas the May 2015 launch of SAVE Houston, Support and Assistance for Volunteers in Emergencies, SAVE, allows for an unprecedented level of coordination between the City of Houston and area volunteer agencies in expediting help to the elderly, disabled, and low-income Houstonians impacted by natural disasters. And whereas faith-based organizations have been instrumental in responding to Houston's Memorial Day flood recovery by providing hundreds of volunteers who have served countless hours in the cleanup, repair, and stabilization of flooded Houston neighborhoods. And now I'm going to honor the three primary volunteer groups, and I hope council will join me in this salute. So first, the first volunteers to step up, but the volunteers who provided the most hours, if representatives of the LDS Church who are here would come up and join me. Led by Elder Jones, who is the leader of the 85,000 Mormons who are in this region, the Greater Houston region. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints dedicated their disaster response team, which is known as Mormon Helping Hands. They organized more than 560 volunteers, and we calculated that they contributed more than 14,000 hours to help Houstonians to clean up and recover from the Memorial Day flood. Whereas the City of Houston commends and appreciates Mormon Helping Hands for its volunteer efforts as part of the Save Houston initiative. Their selfless dedication toward ensuring Houston's resilience in the face of natural disaster truly encompasses the compassionate spirit of Houston. Therefore, I, Annise Parker Mayor of the City of Houston, hereby proclaim June 24th, 2015 as Mormon Helping Hands Day in Houston, Texas. Thank you for what you've done.
Mayor Parker and distinguished council members in the City of Houston, I just want you to know how grateful we are to live in your neighborhoods and to live with the best people in all of the state of Texas and in the entire United States. We just feel like we're friends, we're neighbors, and we enjoy this great bond that we have together. I know you recognize these yellow T-shirts behind me. These are some of the finest young men and young women. That's a fraction of those who are out those several weekends doing the things that they try to do best. If there's one thing we want to be known for, it would be that we want to be sheep, and I'm not trying to teach a sermon. We want to be the sheep and not the goats. And the sheep are those who go out and help their neighbors, who find those and succor those. And so we're grateful. And we're grateful for the privilege of showing our faith by the works that we do. I'd like to actually give, maybe this isn't scripted, but a piece of interest. The LDS Church publishes weekly a little bulletin about things that are going on around the world. And most recently, the published version recognizes the mayor. And we'll give this to you, Mayor. And her interest in allowing us to serve. We're so grateful for that privilege. We are just delighted to be a part of this community.
And may I add, that little bulletin, there are over 15 million members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints worldwide, so this went out to many, many people. It's more than a weekly church bulletin for 500 people. This is widespread.
Okay, I feel a little awkward that you're thanking me for allowing you to serve. You guys stepped up and did a great job.
Yes.
There are council members who wish to.
Councilmember Laster.
Mayor, Neil, Sunday morning, Memorial Day Sunday, we all woke up to a bad tornado, Mayor. And by the time we spoke and we got the second round of service providers out to Rockport Apartments and District J, not long thereafter, Neil showed up with the housing department. Chris Newport was there and the entire staff, and they brought the Army, and more importantly, they brought many of those smiling faces that are standing behind you, Mayor. And it was a real joy to walk with them through that apartment complex, and they saw the need. We didn't know the next day on Memorial Day, Mayor, when we met in the command station, about the rains that were coming, but we were getting ready for it. The next week, after that flooding that happened on Memorial Day, the neighborhood directly across the street suffered at least 150 homes flooded. And the Saints and many other volunteers were right in the midst of that neighborhood, helping people recover their lives. And I want to thank Elder Jones, I want to thank the Saints in particular, and I want to thank each and every one of the organizations that have come forward to create this Save Houston, particularly Neil, your leadership. I hope that this is a template that we build upon, Mayor, and that every organization in this city will be ready to step up to the plate and participate in. But Neil, as long as you live, you'll know that you have done an amazingly good job in this event, and you've done great in service, and so you've been a faithful witness. Thank you. God bless to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Thank you, sir. Director, thank you. And this is the type of, as Councilmember Kubash would say, the PPP that I like to see, the public-private partnership. I think that, you have gone above and beyond your reach in the church, bringing kids to Acres Homes, helping out our seniors before all of this happened, and then continuing to listen to Councilmember Laster and his story. I appreciate you. And, Ms. Mosley, she appreciates you, and we thank you. And a bunch of singers that don't know who you are, they appreciate you. And I'm sure they remember those yellow shirts. And again, I say bless the hand. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Boykins.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I know Westbury is coming up as well, Mayor. But, Neil, I want you to know, I remember during the flood, the mayor had her team, I can't recall, I forget the name of them, where they were meeting in that emergency, what is it called? Command staff. Okay. It was new to me. But anyway, Neil, the mayor was talking about the number of hours you put in. I can't thank you enough for your commitment. And I know you probably did more than the norm because you're a man of faith. And being a man of faith, God teaches us to do for the least and the last. And you're that kind of person. And I admire you so much for what you do. And to the youngsters in the yellow shirts, let's just know for certain that your work doesn't go in vain. We see you guys on weekends. We see you doing work all around this city. And just prepare yourself for the future, because God has big plans for you. Just don't run against me. But if politics is in your future, you guys are starting off the right way by volunteering, and continue to do that, and God will continue to be a blessing to each and every one of you.
Councilmember Christie.
I think the last meeting on the pop-off session, I talked about the volunteerism of this city and why it is the best city in the United States, and it's because of the churches and the people that work together and the philanthropists that we have in this city. It's the most giving city you'll ever come. I asked the Chinese and some of the other countries, why did you come here? The students that come, and I asked them questions like that, because this is the friendliest city. And in friendliness, it's giving and sharing. And I know in those 14,000 hours, we had a good city response, all the departments. We had the churches respond. We had the Red Cross. And all the way from Katrina till today, it does your heart good to see how this city gets along. And if we have a little spot of concern, we rush to it. You look at any disaster in this city, and you see people lined up to give housing, to give food to the people that are down and out. And in those 14,000 hours, I bet you no one looked to see where the house was located, what the age of the person was, whether they were run-down house. You rushed to where the need was. And the comment was made that some people will never know who you are, but I think God knows who you are. And I thank you for your service.
Councilmember Starting.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil, for your service. We've got a lot of projects going on and moving forward, and your leadership has been shown in many cases, and we appreciate it very much. Mayor, thank you for your work in responding at the table here. I told you that we needed more help, and you responded immediately. Your team, Mr. Newport, all the volunteers in the audience, and all those listening. I grew up with a foundation of a story, and it translates today to being what I call being a good neighbor, but it's based on being a good Samaritan in this world. And I think that's what's important to me, is that Houstonians are good neighbors. It doesn't matter your background, your faith, where you come from. If you want to come from Mars and hang out with us, that's good too, as long as you're a good neighbor. But I really, we are a space city, so I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we're here for them, and we see that in the work that y'all have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pennington.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mayor Neal and Chris, for helping to organize the city's effort. This is a great show of community spirit and something that will boost us for many years to come. And I want to particularly recognize those of the Mormon faith. I know that you have a great history of service. I know that your members take time out and devote a year or more. I just know it primarily through people who are well known. I think Barton Smith, the economist for the city, has recently taken a year off to do something like that. So you lead by example, and thank you very much for the work that you have done for our community.
Thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Neil, let me just again echo the council. Thank you, and thank you and the Mormon community for assisting us. As you know, that south of Braeswood area, a lot of that is my district, and so there was a lot of our residents who were adversely affected, but there was always a smiling face and a helping hand to assist those neighbors, and so we appreciate you and all the work you guys do, and you're very much appreciated in Southwest Houston. Thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you. As a council member for District C, which includes Meyerland, we saw probably the greatest amount of devastation in that area, along with Councilmember Green's area. And I just want to thank the young people in particular, because what impressed me was that irrespective of religion and ideology, they stepped out and helped everyone who was being affected by the storm. And they worked to save priceless religious objects. They work to help people that needed the kind of help that only a strong young person can do. And I just want to thank them in particular for putting aside any kind of ideological differences that may exist and said, we are all one, and let us help you. And I thank you, and I thank you for that part of your faith that stepped forward. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I hope I'm the last in queue because I want my thanks to be the cherry on the top of all the thanks that you've been getting. And so echoing Councilmember Laster's comment that on Memorial Day weekend when the tornado and the flood happened, he was keeping busy in District J, and I was helping in my own district, which is right next to his. When I showed up, you guys were there. It was amazing, and I think your smiles meant a lot more than the food and the blankets, because those kids that you toss the ball around and kick the balls around with, I think they really appreciate it more than anything. Thank you, Director Ratcliffe, for your great work, and that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. So we're going to, there are two other groups we're going to recognize today. I'm going to do a quick picture now, but I do want to point out that the Saints always participate in our hurricane preparedness event as well. It is hurricane season, so this may not be our last storm, but we know they'll be ready.
Did we get some of the missionaries? Have some of the missionaries bring back in, or you know?
Yeah, we can put the
Start forming some multiple rows here. Yeah, like a U. You can remove your name IDs from